Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 9 o'clock. The Committee on Health, Tourism, Military Affairs, and Senior Citizens now convenes this public hearing. Public hearing notices were given to the media. First notice was on Friday, January 26, 2018. Second notice was on Tuesday, January 30th, 2018. For the record, today is Friday, February 2nd, 2018, and the time is now 9:02. The committee will hear and accept testimonies, both oral and written, on the following: the executive appointment of Ms. Catherine Seneclas as the nutritionist dietary member of the Guam Board of Allied Health, the executive appointment of Dr. Gregory J. Miller to serve as a chiropractor member of the Guam Board of Allied Health, the executive appointment of Dr. Robert L. Haddock to serve as the veterinarian member of the Guam Board of Allied Health. We'll also hear Bill number 153-34 COR as corrected by prime sponsor Senator Seneclas, an act to amend Section 26208 and Section 26302E and to repeal 26208.1, 26208.2, 26208.3, and 26603D. Each of the Chapter 26, Title 11, Guam Code Annotated, relative to reorganizing certain special funds into the Unified Health Fund, reorganizing administrative protocols of such fund, and amending language to reflect the Unified Health Fund. Also, Bill 197-34 CORE, introduced by Senator Rodriguez and myself, an act to add a new Article 1A to Chapter 12 of Division 1, Title 10, to renumber Section 12229 of Chapter 12, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, to be Section 12A106 of the new Article 1A of Part 1 of Chapter 12 of the Guam Code Annotated, and amend that section to add a new Section 5121 to Subarticle B of Article 2, Chapter 5 of Division 10, Title 5, Guam Code Annotated, relative to establishing the Division of Health Professional Licensing Office, HPLO, within the Department of Public Health and Social Services, authorizing operational funding for the HPLO from the Health Professional Licensing Office Revolving Fund, and provide procurement authorization to the Department of Public Health and Social Services on behalf of the new Division of Health Professional Licensing Office. Also, Bill 207-34 CORE, introduced by Senator Rodriguez and myself, an act to reorganize and reclassify the eligibility specialists and eligibility specialist supervised personnel as welfare program specialists and provide for the coinciding pay grades within the Division of Public Welfare, Bureau of Economic Security, Department of Public Health and Social Services, and to appropriate the sum of $122,761 for the variance in funding required for effective positions and filing of vacancies. Ooh, there's a lot to read here. So, ladies and gentlemen, please just bear with us. Bill 217-34, COR, introduced by Senator Terlai, an act to amend Section 67110, Chapter 67, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, relative to updating the Guam Veterans Registry. And Bill 226-34, COR, introduced by Senator Nelson, co-sponsored by Senator Uglin and Senator Rodriguez, an act to amend subsection A15 of Section 12802 of Article 8 of Chapter 12, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, to add a Section 12802A16 to Article 8 of Chapter 12, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, and to add a new Article 26 to Chapter 12 of Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, relative to establishing certification and licensure requirements for the massage therapy industry on Guam under the oversight of the Allied Health Board. Joining me today in this public hearing is Senator Vice Speaker Senator Therese Terlai and my colleague Senator Telina Nelson. Ladies and gentlemen, general rules for public hearing. The conduct of this public hearing shall be as follows. Those testifying will be recognized in the order of the sign-in on the sheet. Written testimony may be read. Lengthy written testimony should be summarized to about 5 minutes. Written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide our legislative staff with your written testimony for photocopying. Testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the bill. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of the author is not permitted. No debate or rebuttal shall be allowed between two persons testifying. You may submit additional written testimony within 10 days following the conclusion of this hearing. Persons will be allowed to present oral testimony only once. Once you are done, you may be asked to remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony, and may be desired by members of the panel. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. Please state your name. We will now begin to hear testimonies on. First, we will start with Bill 226-34, COR, introduced by Senator Nelson. And immediately after that, we will recognize Bill 217-34, introduced by Senator Lai. All right, Senator, you will now give your opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bill 226-34 aims to establish certification procedures, place the practice of massage under the Board of Allied Health Examiners, and define the proper massage practices under law. This bill will create a licensure and certification process that all those practicing massage must follow. Educational requirements and examination of massage therapists ensure the legitimacy and proper training of those practicing massage on island. All currently practicing masseuses will be given 1 year to comply to these new requirements. By enforcing these standards, we ensure that our masseuses are adequately trained and are providing the best care to our community. Second, by placing the practice of massage under the oversight of the Board of Allied Health, we not only have an established body to license and certify massage therapists, but we recognize masseuses as health practitioners doing their job to improve the health of those they serve. Lastly, the bill aligns the scope of practice of Guam's masseuses with the standards of practice used in many other states. Clarifying the practice of massage protects all legitimate massage practitioners and helps our government recognize those who stray from standard practices. A report released by the Federation of State Massage Therapy Boards connects massage therapy and human trafficking, which shows that somewhere between 6,500 and 9,000 illicit businesses nationwide use massage therapy as a front for human trafficking. This bill hopes to protect legitimate masseuses and close gaps that leave our community in danger of human trafficking. Just a little bit about the history of this bill. This is not the first time that this bill has been introduced, but this is the first time that this bill has had a public hearing. And really, with this bill, we aim to, deter the practice of human trafficking and sex slave trafficking on our island. It's very clear where some of the places on our island perform illicit means that abuse and take away the value of this profession. And so it's not a perfect bill. It's not a one bill fix all, but it most definitely can be a stepping stone to where we can create an additional board so that we can make sure that we are meeting the needs of the legitimate masseuse here on our island, and also that they have their rights protected. And so I'd like to thank you, Mr. Chair, for hearing this bill. I'd like to thank all of you that have come to testify, so I'll hand it over to you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Nelson. I'd like to call on, I apologize up front in case I murder your name. Please don't take it offensively. Shuhi? Okay, sir, if you can please come up. You wanted to give an oral testimony, and we have, I guess the last name would be Han, or is it Poche? P-O-O-C-H-A-N-E-E? Is that you, ma'am? Okay, please have a seat up front. And we have Josephine Regafort, ma'am. And we have Ms. Rhodes. Mary, where are you at? Come on up, Mary. We have also, the agency's from Allred H. I'm not too sure the last name. It looks like a M-E-L-Y. Is there another? Is that you, sir? Please. Okay. Greg? Oh. Hey, you signed? Oh, and Alicia Limtaku, our Attorney General. Yes. Okay, and we will begin with you, sir. Or as a matter of fact, why don't we just begin with the far left and just work our way down? Would that be okay with you? Sir, we'll start with you. Just state your name, please. Got it.
For the record, my name is Dr. Gregory Miller. I'm a chiropractor and I'm the vice chair of the Guam Board of Allied Health Examiners. So I've read the bill once. I haven't really digested everything, but in intent, it's good. The massage therapy does need to be licensed, but there's several concerns that I think we shouldn't move so fast on. I think it'd be nice to have like a roundtable discussion with all the people involved. Massage is often part of physical therapies, part of chiropractic, acupuncture, even in medicine and podiatry, they do it. So that has to be pretty clear as to who can do the massage in those clinics, because it's typically not going to be the PT. It might be a PT assistant or a PT. Well, there's assistants and things like that. The other thing that kind of worries me, and I haven't digested it yet, but when you're dealing with you might call sexual-based massage, it's going to be something to really tangle with, but you do have one exemption in here for Suruhanu. And I think one of the concerns we might have is if you put a strict licensure on and then that unregulated industry that seems to be nobody wants to talk about, they could co-opt that name, Suruhanu, and continue to operate. And I think just for cultural purposes, we need to protect the name Suruhanu or the title Suruhanu. It may require further definition, which I don't think anybody's ever really defined legally what a Suruhanu is. It's just kind of understood what it is. But I think that kind of leaves the door a little bit open for something that would be disrespectful towards the culture in that way. And that's all I have today.
Thank you, sir. Sir? Hi. Just press the button there. There you go.
Yes. I'd like to present a joint statement, which is from me, from Premier Beauty and Spa Guam, DBA Spa Island, which is located in Hilton and Nikko, and also Ansana Spa, located at Sheraton Laguna Guam Resort, which is she's manager next to me, and the Olive Spa Resort, located in the hotel, and Island Selena Spa, which is Hyatt, and then Devalana Spa from Dusitani. Right. We have a joint statement, so I will read the statement. As a spa operation on island, we understand and appreciate.
Sir, could you just identify yourself? Yourself, who you are.
Myself is Shuhei Kuroishi, is represent Premier Beauty and Spa Guam. I'm general manager. Hi. As a spa operators on island, we understand and appreciate the importance of regulating spas so that industry can thrive and offer local visiting customers and safe and professional health and wellness facility. However, in regards to Bill 226-34 COR, we have several concerns regarding the proposed regulation as follows. One major concern is proposed 250 hours or 150 hours of massage therapy training followed by 30 hours of continuing education. That will be required to obtain a massage therapist license or certification. This requirement will potentially prevent individuals from entering the massage therapy field due to the financial impact it would have on the individual. 250 hours equals to 31 8-hour day. Massage therapy field, due to financial impact, it would have, I went over. 250 hours equal 31 8-hours day, at which time massage therapist will not be able to work as he/she doesn't have a license. Not only will there be no license for this individual, but they will also have to pay for the courses as the license will become a pre-employment requirement. The bill also references registered school. However, to our acknowledge, there are no registered massage school on island yet. We have seen examples in the past where licensing requirements for training are implemented, but not enough instructors or classes are available, making it almost impossible to comply with the requirements and therefore leaving individuals out of work and business unable to fill the positions. Requiring 31 full days of training followed by continuing education, how many sessions will have to learn continuously to keep up with the need for therapists? In regards to training and policy, our spas have implemented bland standards and training courses that are all of our massage therapists must complete prior to treatment to customers. We have dedicated spa trainers who oversees all techniques that each therapist administers. Subsequently, with this bill, labor costs for massage therapists will certainly increase as the requirement for licensing will have significant cost increase and therefore affect each spa's financial situation. Under the situation, each spa will face difficulty in maintaining current amount of massage therapists without significant increased cost of services. We thank you for considering our concern regarding Bill 226-34 COR. While we understand the need to ensure that all spas operate legitimately with properly trained therapists, we believe that requirements proposed in this bill will negatively impact legitimate spa operations on island, deter individuals from entering in this field, increase costs of spa services, and not deter the program of legitimate operations. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Ma'am.
Hi, good morning. My name is Pushani Shu. I'm the spa manager at Angsana Spa at Sheraton Hotel. In addition to Mr. Shuhei's statement earlier, I also like to raise a concern that some of our spa therapists are from off-island, as because we are originally from Thailand, and we do have our spa academy in Thailand, Bali, and then is also in China. And because our spa company, we manage about 80 spas around the world, we do have our own academy in Thailand and in Indonesia and in China as well. So some of our spa therapists that are currently working in Angsana Spa Sheraton Hotel, they are originally from Thailand and Indonesia. If they are going to have to be licensed in Guam, or the closest place to go will be in Hawaii, the other concern will be that language barriers in, if they have to undergo the schools in English and take the tests and stuff like that. Of course, we do have our spa trainers from Thailand to be here to also train them, and before they could get certified by our spa trainer, they do have to train at least 300 hours to make sure that they have all that knowledge and complete the training to get to be qualified to be the spa therapist. We do grade them every year to make sure that they keep the standard. But my concern would be the language barrier, because we have some of them that from our main company. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am.
I'm Josephine Ricafort from Angsana Spa. And then my point is, can we relax on this kind of regulation? I am 50-50 on it. I am for it and I am not for it. Because and when I applied as a massage therapist here in Guam, at Angsana Spa, it gives me like, my skills were enhanced. And I saw the big difference between a professional therapist and not professional therapist. For me, even if you don't have a license, as long as you know the guidelines, you can perform the massage in a holistic way. If we are going to like implement this right away, it would be hard for some therapists because of the language barriers. And then there are big adjustments, and then we don't have a school for the massage, and then we don't have what do you call this, a licensed therapist also that will perform or that will give a license to the massage therapist. Are we ready for it? Do the services that we need to implement this law are available right away? No. It will take time before we can regulate this law. We have to start from having a school. Are we capable of like providing them a training without paying? Because it will really spend a lot of money if I go school. If the government, for me, for my side, if the government can provide free trainings, I will. I'm in audit. But if not, let's like relax first and study everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rhodes.
Hapaday and Buenas, Vice Speaker Talahi, Senator Nelson, Senator San Agustin, thank you for having me. My name is Mary Rhodes. I'm the president for the Guam Hotel Restaurant Association, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak on Bill 226. I understand the intent of the bill. We all know that the representatives here from hotels are within establishments that truly provide spa services for our tourists and also our local residents. And I know that the intent of the bill is not necessarily for the spas that are in the hotels. It's for all of those types of establishments throughout the island. And I am so happy that AG Limchiaco is sitting next to me, because I personally have participated in other committees where we have tried to address this bill in previous years, and it's a very difficult task to do so. And so with that said, I would have actually preferred if Senator Nelson had reached out to the industry and talked to us in advance before even introducing a bill, whether it's in committee or whether it's in draft form or anything else. We actually have our vice speaker and 2 senators who are new to the legislature this past year. And I have, in the last 12 years I've been with GHRA, always offered our services to provide input and guidance to our senators. Whether you're a veteran senator or a freshman senator, it doesn't matter. We are always available to provide that input so that we can work together. I actually have worked with Senator San Agustin on the ABC bill for the Responsible Alcohol Server and Seller Act, and he knows how long that process was. It took us 3 years to introduce that bill. So I think the fact is that we're talking about a bill that is an unfinished bill. You actually stated yourself that it's not perfect. It's still in a working draft form. But I think, as Dr. Greg Miller mentioned, it really should have been more of a roundtable discussion, not at a public hearing. And I know that it is still in committee. So I encourage that we actually get the stakeholders together to discuss what the future plans could be should we consider regulations for this industry. I don't see the stakeholders who should be here, like public health, also Guam Community College, or any other educational institute that might be interested in teaching these programs. But it is an issue, and I know that Dr. Miller serves on the Allied Health Board, but I can tell you that we've had past meetings with the Allied Health Board on this, and how difficult it is to administer, how difficult it is to even get an educational institute to teach this program, if there is a program that can be even considered. So this is really premature, and we should really go back to the drawing board and have the discussions with the right stakeholders at the table. But we do appreciate, again, the intent, because I know you're trying to differentiate the type of services and the quality of services that we should have for our local residents as well as our tourists. But the things that I'd like to bring up regarding the content of the bill is regarding really, again, collaborating, having the necessary research, and communicating with the stakeholders. There's no real structure to the bill. When we've introduced legislation, as far as adding regulations to any industry, usually that requires a AAA process through the legislature. That requires an economic impact study. That requires putting together fees schedules and actually real specific information of how people will go through this process. I know that this allows for 90 days. I can honestly tell you, in the hotel and the hospitality industry, in dealing with the Pesticides Act that was passed through Guam EPA, that took us 3 years to educate and train and certify people for more than 6,000 housekeepers.
Just to clarify, the 90 days that you're talking about, that is 90 calendar days. If you've been working for 90 calendar days, you'll be grandfathered into the program for a year, so it's not to be implemented in 90 days.
Well,
I
they
understand
still
where
have
you
to
come
get their
from.
certification, and they can't go past 1 year. So
If
it takes
it's
them a long time.
No less than a year.
Correct.
Yeah.
We had the same thing built in for our ABC license card holders. It took 3 years for Revenue and Taxation's ABC compliance, not the compliance department, but the board, to promulgate rules and regulations. So it took them 3 years to even identify rules and regs, and so the 1 year is still not enough to go through the Allied Health Board, to go through and find an educational institute to provide training and education, to actually train and educate people, to pay for the fees, and for them to maintain their employment. That is still unnecessary. With all of my experience that I've done where we've introduced legislation into and added additional regulations to the industry, you're talking about possibly, I don't even know what the numbers are, and that you don't even cite how many massage practitioners there are here. But with example, for housekeepers, we had more than 6,000 people. For food and beverage, it was more than 15,000 people on Guam. So you have to be realistic, and you actually have to have real numbers to provide, to really substantiate what it is you're trying to accomplish. And so I encourage that we provide that information. But there were some comprehensive bills introduced in the past through past Senator Lou Leon Guerrero, and then some initiatives taken by Attorney General Lim Tiaco. Again, that information, you might want to refer back to those bills that were introduced just to get an idea of how they tried to implement that, just to learn from best practices or at least some past mistakes where we did not get over those hurdles. Working with industry professionals is really important, because then you'll understand the real impact it has to the individuals working into the industry, also those who employ those individuals in the industry. Employers have taken a lot of the responsibility when it comes to paying for the certifications, because we have employees who work in the industry sometimes 5, 10, 20, 30 years. And so to introduce new legislation where they never had to take an exam to have their job, you don't understand the complications and the difficulties for them to have to go back, study, and to take an exam. We have had different types of solutions to try to address that when people have not taken an exam in 30 years or sometimes 60 years from graduating high school. Those challenges are real, and we've had to allow for oral examinations, for example, with the Pesticides Act. And so those things aren't written in here, and I think that, again, a lot of this can be accomplished by having real conversations and collaborating together at a round table. You would actually, with the timelines allowed here, not allow a lot of people to work, and that's where I think the economic impact should really take place. You're trying to address the illegal acts and human trafficking. You may or may not know that there is a task force here on Guam, right, that is led by certain individuals, and they do go out and look for those illegal acts and for people who are practicing on Guam and in the industry without a work permit. Those things are already illegal and on the books, and the issue is about enforcement. But it's not just about enforcement, it's also about how they are able to prove illegal acts. We've had many challenges in working with the Guam Police Department, customs agencies, immigration, to go into certain types of situations to prove illegal acts. You have to have evidence for it, and those are things that are hard to prove. But it's already illegal to have those things like prostitution or, people from other nations working on Guam without a work permit and coming in on a tourist visa, for example. Those things are illegal, and it's all about enforcement, and that is currently taking place. It may not be perfect, it may not be fast enough, but it is taking place, and so that necessarily shouldn't be the reason for this bill. I think this bill should really be more about the quality and service and training and education of our people. And with that, I would like to see language on who the Educational Institute is. I would like to know if there have been any conversations from either yourselves or the Allied Health Board to get educational institutions or even private institutions to look at certification programs. I know that, like, for example, the Outrigger Guam Resort has brought in a person this month in February to provide training, and they're going to be working with GHRA to provide training for island-wide. But there isn't a certification program that she's providing. That is really more of an educational piece, and not for continuing education either, because that doesn't exist on Guam. The other thing that is of concern is that you mentioned in the bill Federation of State Massage Therapists Therapy Board Massage and Bodywork licensing exams, as well as the National Certification Board for Therapeutic Massage Therapy and Bodywork. That doesn't exist on Guam. I've gone to the websites to look up if Guam's even listed as an authorized place to provide that certification. You are referencing U.S. organizations that are not even licensed on Guam or even have authorization to provide certifications on Guam. And you're also mentioning U.S. Department of Education. You're not even mentioning Guam Department of Education or local institution like GCC to take over the program. So those are inherent challenges when people write into the bill referencing things from the United States and not localizing it for what works on Guam. You're making a lot of assumptions when you haven't worked through individuals who work in the industry or work at the institutions or work in the Allied Health Board, whether or not these programs are even reasonable for Guam. As mentioned previously in other testimony, the number of hours of training as well as continuing education is a huge challenge as well. Whether or not there are passing grade requirements, that hasn't been mentioned, and as Senator San Agustin knows, that was a huge issue with the ABC license in identifying what is considered as a passing grade for Guam, considering our educational system. Also the fact that people have not taken an exam who may be working in this industry, sometimes from 20 up to 50 years. We have a lot of issues with this, and I know that you're trying to understand or identify what type of quality of care is there, and you're leaving that to the Allied Health Board, but I don't see them here.
Ms. Rhodes, I don't want to stop you, but we're in the 5 minutes, and I want to make sure everybody get a shot.
Okay, I'll close out.
Thank you.
Thank you. There is mention of, again, with the extension to allow the 90 days for up to a year. Again, there are inherent challenges with that with the number of people, and so we need to find data to support whether or not that's even reasonable and attainable. So again, I implore the senators, especially our freshman senators, to work together with the industry and with all of the stakeholders in place who you expect to hand this out. I have seen many things like RASA as well as Pesticides Act. Currently, the health certification program through public health has been on hold the last 2 years because they can't even implement it on the changes to the health certificates for the industry. So we have many things that have been required, but we can't enforce because we don't have the manpower within even our government agencies to allow certification programs to go through in a reasonable time to allow people to get to work. So thank you very much. On behalf of Guam Hotel Restaurant Association and all of its members, we appreciate the opportunity.
Attorney General, Ms. Alicia, please. And we have Pat Pix. Ma'am, would you come forward so that you'll be right after the Ms. Limtiaku? Ma'am.
Thank you, Vice Speaker Terlahi, Senator San Augustine, Senator Nelson, co-sponsors of Bill number 226-34, Senator Rodriguez and Senator Uggan, for the invitation and opportunity to provide testimony on Bill number 226-34 relative to establishing licensure and certification requirements for the massage therapy industry on Guam under the oversight of the Guam Board of Allied Health Examiners. I am here today as a parent, a community member, and former prosecutor and chair of the Guam Human Trafficking Task Force. I believe it is important to provide some history and context regarding the need for establishing licensure and certification requirements as set forth in the proposed legislation. There is a critical need for licensure and certification laws pertaining to the massage industry on Guam. There are no such laws in place regarding the professional qualifications, credentialing, education, and training required for the legitimate practice of massage. In my former position as Attorney General, working with community partners, including the Guam Department of Public Health and Social Services, the Guam Board of Allied Health Examiners, the Guam Department of Labor, the Guam Fire Department, the Guam Department of Revenue and Taxation, legitimate masseuse practitioners, and other stakeholders, we learned that there were no laws in existence that mandated individuals to meet or satisfy certain professional qualifications, credentialing, education, and training who wanted to provide or claimed to provide massage services to the public. And that, in essence, any one of us could open an establishment and hang a sign claiming to offer massage services by obtaining only sanitary and health permits and meeting fire code and business license requirements. That was in 2009. And since that time, efforts were made by members of the legislature, including Speaker Wonpat, Senators Muñoz Barnes, Rodriguez, and Tyrone, the Guam Human Trafficking Task Force, and other stakeholders to propose and pass legislation to address this gaping hole in our laws, though they were not successful. We are now here in 2018, 9 years later, and we appreciate your efforts, Senators, to address this issue once again. It is important to recognize that legitimate masseuse practitioners exist and continue to provide much-needed health and wellness services to consumers, and that the proposed legislation, Bill number 226-34, is intended to protect legitimate practitioners and build confidence among consumers that such services are safe and healthy. Unfortunately, studies and reports have referred to illegal activities such as prostitution and human trafficking occurring in massage parlors, therapeutic massage establishments, and others of this nature. Unregulated practices and the potential for criminal activity present both public health and public safety issues for any community. The proposed legislation, Bill number 226-34, is intended to address gaping holes in the civil law to further strengthen public health and public safety protections, including protecting the community from falling victim to illegitimate practitioners and potential criminal activity, including financial and physical harm and the exploitation and abuse of human beings. Law enforcement and the criminal justice system must continue to do its part in holding offenders accountable who work behind or in illegitimate businesses masquerading as massage establishments, including those involved in human trafficking, violence against women, and child sexual exploitation. But law enforcement cannot do it alone. It truly takes a community effort. If there are holes in our civil laws that allow individuals to manipulate the regulatory process and open establishments that conduct illegitimate and criminal activity because there are no laws mandating that professional qualifications, credentialing, education, and training for the legitimate practice of massage are met, then for every offender and establishment taken down through the criminal justice system, another 1, 2, 3 or more illegitimate establishments will easily be opened up for business to the public within a very short time, if not the next day. The proposed legislation, if passed and enacted into law, and it should be noted that other states have passed similar laws, can be viewed as a tool to help distinguish legitimate massage businesses from illegitimate or disreputable ones, and if this results in the closure or elimination of those establishments which are illegitimate, then from a resource standpoint, this may make law enforcement's efforts to address and control illegal activity or vice involving these establishments more manageable. I have met and discussed Bill number 226-34 with other stakeholders who have provided the following general comments or recommendations for your consideration. Certain stakeholders who were not able to be present to testify today will be submitting written testimony addressing these comments or recommendations in more detail. They include creating a massage therapy board, for example, 4 licensed massage therapists and 1 public member at large, with the input of the Guam Board of Allied Health Examiners. Creating an investigator position for the Guam Board of Allied Health Examiners or the Massage Therapy Board, should that board be created. Providing additional personnel resources to the Guam Department of Public Health and Social Services and Guam Department of Labor, responsible for inspections and investigations of and compliance by such establishments. In closing, unregulated practices and criminal activity again present both a public health and public safety issue for our communities. Bill number 226-34 will be helpful in addressing gaps in the civil law to further strengthen public health and public safety protections relative to the massage industry, including protecting the community from victimization by illegitimate practitioners and from potential criminal activity, including financial and physical harm and the exploitation and abuse of human beings. For all the reasons as stated in my testimony, I support the intent and spirit of Bill number 226-34. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify in support of the bill. Si Zeus Masi.
Thank you. Ms. Pat.
Thank you. I apologize I didn't have time to organize my thoughts too well, but I am here, and I'd like to just start with a little introduction to myself. I'm a retired teacher. I went back to school to learn a type of therapy called structural integration. I just got approval to teach what I do, and I have started teaching my work here on Guam. I've followed all the current laws, and I have the approval of the International Association of Structural Integrators. Anyhow, I think we're kind of, I would like to follow up with the previous person, but I think a lot of the problem is we aren't calling a spade and separating massage from prostitution. And that, as a 71-year-old practitioner, it really rubs me the wrong way when I have to go and get my licensing for massage, and the only difference between my licensing and for therapeutic massage that I see and for just massage is that I don't have to get the tests for STD. Part of the reason we have a problem like this is because we've associated massage with that. We need to separate that out, call it by some other name, not massage, and control that. I think a better route is education, so people know what they're getting. If they have a trained therapist, they're going to get better work. They aren't going to get hurt. And not many people get hurt from massage, but it can happen. Another thing is we never have enough money, and it's going to cost money to implement this. It's going to be another thing that's the law is passed, and it's not going to be enforced because we don't have the money. I was concerned about the grandfathering clause. 1 year of grandfathering in people who have worked for 5 years already. When you grandfather, I also practice in South Dakota in the summers. When I was grandfathered in there, when they passed their massage law, which, by the way, they're thinking of getting rid of, when I was there, everybody was grandfathered in who was practicing. Then we started to have to meet the requirements. The way this is written is impossible. We have no massage school as such, and yet people are given 1 year to get certified and then take an additional 30 hours of CEs. That's impossible. Nobody who's working in a practice can do that. Another thing, if you're going to require that everybody is certified, those people are going to have spent a lot of money going to school, because we don't have a school here, except for what I'm doing, as far as I know. And if everybody's going to go to school, they're going to spend money. I have probably $40,000 spent on my training between classes and travel. So you go off island, you get your training. You're not going to come back here and work for $30 a session. Who's going to massage the people who can't afford it? There are some people who have good skills. They're innate skills of communicating with the body at that level. So those people are either going to be doing it on the side, or the people who can afford less are not going to get massage. And massage has value, especially in our society as we get more and more busy and more stressed. Having somebody doing some manual work with you is very beneficial. So I think, in summary, I'm opposed to the bill because I don't think it's going to do what you want it to do. I think you need to go back and revisit it and separate prostitution from massage. And until we're ready to do that, I don't think we're going to make a dent. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I have another sign-up sheet here, but I'm going to bet that Ms. Domingo and Susan, I think you signed up on the wrong one, but did you want to speak or no? You're here to support or oppose, whichever way, right? Okay. That's the last testimony, and I'll have now Senator Nelson be able to communicate with you folks or make our closing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank all of you for coming here today. We have been doing a lot of research on this issue. We do understand some of the challenges that have been brought up in the past. So it wasn't just on a whim that we were going to do this within the past couple of months. No, we've really been researching it, and we've been reaching out to various task force, perhaps some industry partners, but maybe it didn't hit all of you. This is a health issue. It's not a food and beverage issue. This is something that involves health. It's a health profession. And so, which is why we're looking at the Board of Allied Health to be the minister of the requirements and certification. However, I wrote down all of your concerns, and I admire your willingness to come to the table and help, because I am going to come to you and ask for your help. You've been in the industry for 10 years or more, and so I know that you have solutions so that we can make this bill something concrete and we can move it forward. I want to work with you, but we must do something. We cannot continue to look the other way and pretend that we don't need a certification or requirement, because this involves health. It's not a food and beverage, it's not an ABC license, it involves the health of the individual. And that is the most the most concrete thing, is how do we just allow a health certificate with a 6-month requirement for STD to be a masseuse? That just doesn't make any sense to me. These people are healers. And so we need to start looking at them as allied health professionals. And we need to bring their level of performance up a notch, and of course requirements. This has been going on for 20 years or more. We cannot deny it does not exist. So I mean, I am going to reach out to every one of you, and please, if you could make time for me, I would appreciate that so that we can come up with something concrete. Because I know you want to have something concrete. I know you just don't want to let this bill die and then never see it again, because this again involves the health of the individual. And so if we can come together and come to something, a compromise, so that we can move it forward and develop and build from it there, maybe a small pilot, a test run, then let's do that also. And I understand thank you for sharing about the certifications, that it's just not practical. No, we'll definitely look into that. And also addressing the grandfather clause, the need to extend that time for everyone that's already practicing. And the reason why the clause was so short is because we understand that, that human trafficking, and not just prostitution, but human trafficking comes in every 6 months. They come in for 6 months, under the guise of a masseuse, and then they leave before they have to, before they're even tracked. And so it's just a wash of people coming in and out, rotating in and out, and it's humane, it's unjust, and it's wrong. And for us to sit here and say that, oh, well, there's not enough money, there's something wrong with this, there's something wrong with that. We're not protecting, we're not looking out for the whole of the community, we're only looking out for ourselves. But so I want to ask your help so that we can make this happen and we can make it something that everyone can agree on. Okay? Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Nelson. Senator Lai, did you have anything you wanted to bring up? Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to testify? There being none, the committee will conclude the hearing on Bill 226-34 COR, introduced by Senator Nelson, co-sponsored by Senator Elgin and Senator Rodriguez. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And now I know that we have several folks that are waiting for the confirmation hearing, but we have one more bill that we want to hear before we proceed to the confirmation. So if you would just be patient. It's Bill 217-34 COR, introduced by Senator Lai. Thank you. And we would have, let me see. We have the following folks. Please approach the table and join us. Sergeant Major Bruce, did you want to? You're in favor. Okay, no testimony. We have First Sergeant Mendiola. Dan, would you please come forward? We have Mr. Chief Condiff. Bill, is he still here? Okay, Chief is still here. We have Barmy. We have Hussein St. Augustine. Where did that veteran Sergeant Major Marine go? Anyway. Yes, I'm gonna have you. I now ask Senator Vice Speaker to please do her introduction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And buenas and hafade todos hamzu. Thank you, members of the Committee on Health and Tourism, Military Affairs, and Senior Citizens for having this hearing today on Bill 217. I'd also like to thank the Guam Veterans Affairs Office Administrator, Mr. Joe St. Augustine, for all his help and consultation in working on these bills, and for his presence here today. And the presence, I would like to thank all of you, the Veterans Organization representatives and veterans who are present today. Thank you very much. Bill 217-34 is an act to amend one section, Section 67110 of Title 10, relative to updating the Guam Veteran Registry. So this, if I could, I have a very quick presentation, just a PowerPoint, so I would hope that we can just all get onto the same page. Is that PowerPoint available? Okay, great. All right, next page, please. So the bill is going to amend a law that's already been established by Public Law 32-101. In 32-101, that's where a Guam Veteran Registry was required, mandated by law, and it was put into the arms of the Guam Veterans Affairs Office. And so they have been working on this. So this bill is really only intended to amend that law in very specific locations. And So that law, when it created the registry, it had the two goals. One was to provide veterans and their families with current info on benefits and activities. So it looks like the law was intended to be an outreach tool for the Guam Veterans Office to reach out to veterans, to reach them and give them information when it was timely. And the second purpose was to further strengthen Guam's ability to pursue financial resources and support by being able to have accurate numbers of who the veterans are in Guam and what their needs are. All right, thank you. This, of course, has been very challenging, and I came upon this really through newspaper articles where they talked about this being an issue and for many, many, many years, and that this law was intended to solve it, but we are still having problems. The numbers did not jive to me. So let me show you what I was looking at. So the first column is the 2010 U.S. Census, and it showed that the veteran population count was, I can't read that from here, sorry, I think I've passed, did you get copies of this? All right, well, the 2010 U.S. Census count was 8,041 veterans on Guam. The next column shows the Guam Office of Veteran Affairs, and this is in 2014 had reported 24,000 veterans on Guam. And the U.S. Veterans Affairs Office in the next column reports in 2016, I know these are different years, 9,933. That is not the right title. That is, this should be, that last, the next column, please. Yeah, that's not the homeless veteran count. That is the Guam Veterans Office most recent count, right, is 11,000. So sorry, that column heading is incorrect. So if you could just show the whole chart. The numbers varied so much, and I couldn't understand how we could go from 24,000, reporting 24,000 in 1 year, to only reporting 11,000 now, and why our numbers were different than the other numbers. And I guess also there was general talk that the numbers were not high enough, that there were more veterans than what our numbers show. So that to me was the issue, is if we're still not able after this law to accurately get a number of veterans on Guam, then I just wanted to see what we could do to really achieve this. And I acknowledge that the Guam Veterans Affairs Office is a very small office, probably underfunded, and in order to achieve this purpose, on top of the other purposes of that office, which is to advise veterans, to help them with their claims, to manage the cemetery, and many other things. This was another duty that was put on that office, and so I realized that they were challenged. And the other thing that I wanted to, I guess, get to the bottom of is why we were chasing our veterans down, and, why did we have to do that? Why? And it seemed to me that was there any other way that we could get this information? So if I could just continue, there is the 24,000 in the previous slides. Let's just stay on that for one more second. Okay, thank you. So the 24,000 that the Guam Veterans Affairs Office reported in 2014 seems to have come from the 24,000 physical forms, files that they have in their office. And they are currently working with the Office of Technology to input these and to verify whether they are still accurate or not, or valid. But so they actually do have approximately that number of physical files in their office. In addition to that, they are receiving files from the Department of Defense regularly. When people are discharged, they have an option to send their file their DD-214 to the Guam Veterans Affairs Office. So they add those to their registry. And they are now put their registry online. They have an online source that they can input this data, or veterans can go in and input this data. I'm sure that the director will update us on that. But the problem with the U.S. Census data, it's only captured every 10 years. So the next one will be in 2020. We have the U.S. Veterans Affairs Office also is only counting, those numbers are only reflecting those who have applied for services or actively engaged in applying for services. And so it does not necessarily include all the retirees or other people who may not be applying to that office for services. Okay, so if we can go to the next slide. The next slide is the DD-214, and I've been working with the Congresswoman's office on this because there are several parts here that are very important for Guam's Veterans Registry purposes. It's hard to see the highlighted, but there's one part on the DD-14 says home of record at time of entry. So the Congresswoman has agreed and sent a letter to try to get all of those, a list or a number of all of those veterans who have indicated Guam as a home of record in this part of the form. So she's asked, I think, the U.S. Veterans Affairs Office, and I've asked her to also check maybe Department of Defense if they would provide that to her directly, right? So that would just be a number that our Guam's Veterans Registry could use in whatever way possible to verify their own numbers. And there's another part on the form, on line 20. It says, member requests copy be sent to, and then there's a blank for the state Office of Veterans Affairs. And this is another place where if you put Guam, this is how our local Veterans Affairs Office receives these DD-214 forms directly from the Department of Defense. And so I've also asked the Congresswoman to verify from the other side, from the source of when they send these out, if they could verify how many they have actually sent to Guam over the years, and to kind of dig back and see, so that maybe we don't have to recreate that, and that she can help us to update that. So I'm hoping that she will be successful in that. But in any event, whatever information she can get from that source, I'm hoping you can also use to verify your information. And then the other part is that the member request copy be sent to the central office of the Department of Veterans Affairs. And this is also an optional, not mandatory, choice of the veterans when they're being discharged. So this is why, and she was, I think she had written to the Department of Veterans Affairs to, well, that's how people get into that system, I guess, but they don't indicate Guam here, so, all right. But she had asked the U.S. Veterans Affairs Office how many they have as listing Guam. All right, so next slide, please. So this is the change to the bill. So the bill already exists. It already mandates all government of Guam entities to render assistance to the Office of Veterans Affairs. And so all we are trying to do with this bill is kind of, instead of it being optional, just to mandate that their assistance be in this concrete form by whenever it says I'm adding the language that says all government entities for whom a DD-214 form is presented by an applicant as an identifying or a qualifying document for benefits or services shall forward a copy of the applicant's DD-214 form to the Office of Veterans Affairs no later than 5 days. Transmission may be made by electronic means as prescribed by the Office of Veterans Affairs. The Office of Veterans Affairs shall have the authority to adopt regulations to implement and administer the provisions of this section. The administrator of the Office of Veterans Affairs shall submit a monthly progress report to the Guam Veterans Registry. So this process is already controlled by the Guam Veterans Affairs Office. I've restated that very clearly, I hope, so that nobody can challenge whether this is being done, in violation of any type of rule, because the Veterans Affairs Office is in absolute control of how this was going to be done by any agency. And I just added the monthly progress reports because I think I would just like to see if this helps, if we can see where perhaps you could tell us we are getting these now from this agency, and so we would know which agencies were actually cooperating or not, or where, maybe our efforts could be increased. All right, next slide, please. So the agencies that we can see right now that might be providing government, and we're only talking about government of Guam agencies that are providing services or benefits to the veterans right now. The biggest one is the Department of Revenue and Taxation. And so we are just hoping that the Department of Revenue and Taxation right now, to get their license and ID card division, to get their license or their vehicle registration, the government of Guam is waiving some fees, and in order to do that, they are having to be certified by the Veterans Affairs Office and then bringing that certification over, and we are looking at whether they could just be doing that directly. But anyways, there's a similar system that was passed into law recently where the Guam Election Commission is also going to be registering people right at the Department of Revenue and Taxation. So when you apply for your driver's license, you will be given the option to register to vote. So that's a new law that's been established, and I followed up with the Guam Election Commission to see how they were actually implementing that, and they have trained and deputized the customer service representatives at the Department of Revenue and Tax so that they will follow the Guam Election Commission's procedures, their confidentiality rules, and transmit the information exactly as the Guam Election Commission provides or requires. All right, next slide, please. All right, so to reiterate that the benefits of the bill are intended to fill the gaps on the veterans who are not registered with the GVAO, to encourage the veterans who are not registered right now with the GVAO. It's my understanding that if you're not actively pursuing a benefit from the U.S. Veterans Affairs Office, then you might not be counted in that number. And retirees who they have health insurance, they might not need to register over there, so they may not be included also in this number. So we do have to kind of fill some gaps, and I know that they're working very hard on this. So it's just my goal to see if our government agencies, they're already required to assist, if we could just give them more specific direction as to how to assist so that we could shortcut the work of the Guam Veterans Affairs Office and get the registry updated as soon as possible, hopefully immediately. And now the Office of Technology has promised to come up with some technology that will also do this at point of contact in a very confidential manner, and they're working with the Veterans Affairs Office, so I'm very hopeful that they will also come up with something that is, again, controlled by the rules of the Guam Veterans Affairs Office and meets their mandate, and also just makes it very convenient for all the government of Guam agencies. All right, and so that, Mr. Chair, is the bill, and I thank you again for being here.
Thank you. We will now begin testimony from Versar Mendiola, and then we'll just work our way to your left. All right? We'll get the E8 and then the two E9s to end it. Okay? Sir?
What's our time limit for our speech? 2 to 5 minutes? Okay, good morning, Mr. Chairman, Senators, ladies, gentlemen, veterans. My name is Dan Mendiola, Chairman of the Guam Veterans Commission, and currently the President of the Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 668. I am in support of Bill 21734 to better serve our veterans by mandating a report of veteran status to the Guam Veterans Office or officer. This information is crucial most of the time because we deal with numbers when we want to assist our veterans, whether it be providing service or services requested, or for something that requires some sort of law or legislation to create a more conducive legal means to accomplish and make it possible to deliver the service requested. The Veterans Registry provision sets forth in Title 1067 is vague and leaves multiple questions as to how we can establish a favorable guideline, making it possible to achieve the desired outcome of the intended law. The Guam Veterans Commission has been operating for quite a while, and without specific internal guidelines to properly deliver the requested service we are tasked for, or whenever the veterans comes forward and asks for help. This is why it takes the Commission long to finally, and we are now working to approve a set of bylaws to accommodate the specifics of dealing with veterans' needs. The Senator mentioned quite a bit of things about recognizing veterans, and this is not in my testimony, but for example, in the registry we can include that there is a law in place, Public Law 333-33, that mandated that a veteran coming to get a driver's license be stamped with the word veteran somewhere in the license card. And also I believe that could be done in the ID section. So that further enhances recognition whether a person is a veteran or not. They have not implemented that to this point, as far as I know. Veterans Home of Records, something that we need to think. Very important. Because when I got out, I found out that my home of record was not really Guam. It was Fort Carson, Colorado. And the reason for that was the people and the clerks that are operating on the discharge station are not aware that. And they're not aware to ask us as to what do we want to be our home of record is. Well, what happened is when a soldier does not know that he's got options, he would say, no preference. And when you say no preference, Fort Carson, Colorado will be my home of record. So the inquiry and the suggestion going forward to our Congresswoman's office is fine. That's good. And I hope that they can create a good educational training for the people that are out processing or in processing on the discharge section and reenlistment section to put out the word that this guy's from Guam and he needs to know that, they're saying that it's good for you to maintain Guam as your home record instead of the current unit you're with and the state that you're in. So that's something to remember. We're doing a lot of things, and we're trying to do a lot of things in the Commission to help the veterans. The problem that we have is that we lacked cooperations and some of our leaders and organizational leaders to take part in trying to move forward in getting organized in manning positions in our Veterans Commission office. And that entity in the Veterans District, and as far as government agency, is very important, and we need to work on that. I would like to encourage all the Veterans Organization commanders to please come on out and support us, because when they come out and support us in the Commission, that means that we're getting some type of a percentage of cooperation. Now, if we can look back here right now, look how many veterans there are here for the hearing. And that's just exactly what I'm talking about. How many times have you put out the notice for the hearing? Where people will get tired. Oh, yeah, we know it. Everybody knows it except the veterans. I don't know why, but that's kind of funny. So we have a lot of things to do. You mentioned the Guam Veterans Office and officer taking charge of the registry. But how many of us really realize that the Guam Veterans Office is undermanned? And who is going to implement and come out with the report? Who's going to be typing the report? Mr. San Agustin? He's the acting administrator. So, you know, we have to consider a lot of things when we move forward to implement something, and those are just part of it. In closing, I would like to extend my request to all our agencies, directors, and customer service reps to, once we embark in mandating the law for Veterans Registry, to communicate with us in the Commission and let us be part of your internal processing procedure. In other words, we don't stand to be the justice or the know-it-all of your department in implementing something. But if you do have questions, please address it to me or my commission, and we'll be ready to come on out and help. Thank you very much, and have a nice day. Veterans, all the way.
Thank you, First Sergeant. Chief, you're next.
Thank you, Senator. Long time since I've heard someone address me as chief. Thank you. That's not Chamorro chief, that's Army chief. So as most of you know, my name is Barry Mead. I'm a Vietnam veteran. I'm a VFW Gold Life Legacy Life member, a life member of the Disabled American Veterans. I serve as the adjutant, work for Dan next door here. At his pleasure, by the way, it's an appointed position. I wasn't going to go through all of this, but that's okay. I'm a VSO, though not fully certified by the VA yet. I'm the Junior Vice Commander and Service Officer for VFW 2917, and I also serve as a District 6 of the Department of the Pacific Service Officer, meaning this registry is important to our organizations for the purposes of assisting veterans with their claims. I wrote a lot of notes down here as Dan was talking, so I'll probably interject some of those. And I'll just start with what I wrote. I said, though I am in support of anything that will enhance the completion and ongoing updates of a veterans registry, I'm saddened by a number of issues related to this bill, and I've listed the reasons. And know that the Vets Commission and the members of the Commission, we've all been involved in trying to get this veterans registry done. I think when it went online, I would venture to brag that I was one of the first 5 guys to fill it out. And I would ask Senator San Augustine if he is on that registry. And Senator Nelson should be on that registry as well, and I'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, we have another, I'm sorry to say, we have another piecemeal approach to fixing a larger problem, and that is 10 GCA Chapter 67 in its entirety. Senator Rodriguez, Chief of Staff, and I are pushing for all veterans groups to submit their recommendations on revising the chapter in its entirety through the Guam Veterans Commission. We've been doing this for about 3-4 months now. We're making good headway. We've had a discussion that we would like to have our presentation for the legislature ready to go by March 31st, so hopefully the legislature can act on it before you all get reelected or unelected. I provided, attached to this testimony, a testimony I gave on Bill 24433 in September of 2015 as an example of another piecemeal approach to a long existing problem that did nothing to fix it. I'm also disappointed, and I know you can add more names, but I'm disappointed there are only 2 sponsors for this bill. One isn't here today. And not one of these 5 senators are veterans that serve in the legislature. He's here now. Good for him. Sneak in the back door. There has never, to my knowledge, been a full accounting of the fiscal year 2015 appropriation of $50,000 for the establishment of this registry. You spoke earlier on your PowerPoint presentation about how getting with the tech guys to help the GVAO verify these 24,000 people. Well, being of limited knowledge, and I will say that I did send a FOIA request also in September of 2015 to the GVAO administrator at that time for an accounting of that money, because it seems to me that that money would have helped provide the GVAO with the technology necessary with which to do the registry correct. It didn't happen. Currently, there's an ongoing push to establish the registry. But the current GVAO administrator is only one person. And I know he has gone to villages, he has gone to other events, personally himself, staying late at night, trying to accomplish this. But he is working with an understaffed office that is responsible for a burial of 17 vets a month. Now, I derived this number because on his last report to the commission, he said that they have done 204 burials in 2017, roughly 17 a month. I didn't realize just what that means until I sat and I did the math. I'm going, dude, what else do these guys do? Well, they process numerous VA claims as having a certified VSO. They're trying to get another one because of the backlog. They find homes for homeless vets, working with WestCare and GURA, which gives them the ability to occupy the building that they are in, and countless other responsibilities. And I say this, maybe this should be the concern of the legislature. Not passing another law, but fixing a problem that has been ongoing and neglected for many years. I have the ability now to upload the administrator, Joe's report to the commission every month, and I send the current minutes and agendas as the adjutant and copy Senator Rodriguez's office. And the commission is also, if I'm not mistaken, we're required to copy the governor's office as well. So that's being done. My next concern isn't part of the sadness. My next concern is this. The requirement for all government of Guam agencies to forward a copy of DD 214, though on the surface sounds good, but the question of privacy may come into play. As I quote, "The Privacy Act of 1974 limits access to a veteran's DD 214 to only the service member, either past or present, or the member's legal guardian. Only these persons will have access to almost any information contained in that member's own record. Others requesting information from military personnel health records must have the signed authorization of the service member or legal guardian." And I attached the website. Line 21 of the DD 214 that you had up on the board is very, very private. It has everlasting effects on a veteran's life with their respect to VA benefits, re-enlistment opportunities, and other things related to them. It tells a story. It can tell a very good story, or it can tell a very bad story. And that's not something that a lot of veterans want to have out on the street for people just to pass along, because people can go look up what those codes mean. So in other words, without the veteran's express written authorization, the DD 214 cannot be forwarded. The next item I have is restricting this to only DD 214 amidst all the members of the National Guard. In that the National Guardsmen do not have a DD 214. They have an NGB 22. Serves as the same purpose, but it's not the same form, and it does not have the same standing. As an example, Guam law stipulates that an appointee to a commission or board must show military service evidenced through a DD 214. But as in the instance of a recent appointee to the Guam Education Board, he doesn't have one. and was allowed to provide a signed statement in lieu of it, though he should have been made to produce an NGB 22. And I might say there's a lot of problems if you read the version of military service with the version of resume. This bill and Bill 218-34 are somewhat redundant, as everything that I have done at Rev and Tax concerning something as a veteran, I had to go to the GVAO to get the authorization letter. I never produced a DD 214 to Rev and Tax. So to me, where is the need? It's confusing. Anything you do at Rev and Tax as a veteran, as Dan alluded to, you go to the GVAO, and Joel, correct me if I'm wrong, if you want to get a veteran's license plate, you go to the GVAO and get a document. You want to get your driver's license at no expense, you go to the GVAO and get a document. You don't give that document to Rev and Tax. Additionally, other than the GVAO, what government of Guam agencies would require, other than maybe the Department of Labor and possibly GURA, a DD 214? I realize that a veteran claiming the 5 or 10 point preference for employment may fall under this category, but again, for DOA or HR in the case of autonomous agencies would fall under the Privacy Act. My suggestion is to allow the Guam Veterans Commission, with the current GVAO administrator, to do its job in providing the legislature with a comprehensive review and revision of 10 GCA Chapter 67 for consideration, hopefully a public hearing and an adoption, to fix the entire problem instead of using a piecemeal, bouncing around the issues method. The only other comment I have is that, along with what Dan is saying, you don't see a lot of vets here today. When the VA was here in December, there was a very low turnout of veterans for the town hall meeting. It's very difficult for the commission as a commission and its members to get vets to do things like the registry or participate, including Veterans Day, because we forget the purpose for which we're here for. We're here for our veterans. A vet is a vet is a vet. We're not here to recognize mayors and senators and everyone else. We're here to recognize our vets. And it's the apathy of things like this where we have, and I'll be honest with you, my original reaction when I read these two bills is, here we go again. Another piece of touchy-feely good, see, I did something for the vets legislation that doesn't fix the problem. And as I said, Chuck Tanner and I have been working and meeting, and we've been receiving email inputs to GCA 10, Chapter 67, from a lot of vets. And as Dan also mentioned, the bylaws which rule or govern how the commission does its job is governed by Chapter 67. And it's become very difficult. Who do we recognize as members of the commission? How do we recognize them as veterans of the commission? Instead of being left up to the vets, it's mandated by law. And that becomes very disturbing. Disturbing to vets. Vets that want to be a part of the commission aren't allowed by law. There are a lot of guys. Me, I just started going to the meetings because I wanted to go to the meetings. Well, there's a lot of guys like that want to go to the meetings. They want to do something. They want to participate. But Dan has to tell them, well, I'm sorry, the law says we can't. Well, what does that do? Makes them be absent at public hearings on veterans issues. And the last one in line with that is, currently the GVAO, and I'm asking you directly, Senator, because I saw your response to Susan, I'd like to see the legislature's support of the GVAO investigation into Agent Orange being used, disseminated, and stored on this island. Not just during the Vietnam era, but in subsequent years as well. And I'd like to see that. That resolution was done in April. And what are the results of that resolution? What has the legislature done to follow up on that? What have they done to sequester, or not sequester, to get more vets? And as I said in my testimony at that public hearing, it's not just the vets. It's the civilian employees. It's their children. And thank God Susan has produced some really good material to back up what I said. But where is the follow-up from the legislature? And that's where I get to use the word piecemeal legislation. Fix the problem. Do what you say you're going to do. But at the same time, as Dan said, let us do our job. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Meade. And so we'll definitely take your testimony and your comments into consideration. And just like you know that we'll continue to work with you and the others. Thank you. Mr. Cundiff?
Chuck sticks up for you, man.
Well, thank you, Senator Rodriguez and Senator Terlahi. My name is Bill Cundiff, and I'm president of the U.S. Air Force Veterans Association, and I'm testifying on our behalf. Obviously, the responsibility for registering in the registry lies with the veterans. That's the bottom line. However, what you're doing is adding value and helping the GVAO, assisting them in trying to get more veterans to register. That's what you're doing. And I really, really appreciate that. You know, in problem solving, we normally have many solutions, just not one. And what you're doing is you're providing solutions, not just a solution, but solutions to a long-standing problem. And I know that at the end, it's going to be long and very enduring to get this issue lit, but I think we can with the help of everybody. And I'll tell you, it's very refreshing for you to do this. We've been trying to do this for a long, long time. You're the first one to step up to the plate to do something about it, talking about the registry. And this is so important. It gives, like in the business community, added value to what we're trying to do. I'd just like to make a few recommendations, more recommendations, hopefully to capture and help identify some of our veterans, or all of our veterans, and put them in the registry. But on line 24 to 27, say, all Gulf Guam entities, wherever applicable, shall render assistance to the Office of Veterans Affairs in carrying out the provisions contained herein. All government entities for whom a DD-214 form is presented by an applicant as an identifying or a qualifying document, benefits or services shall forward a copy of the applicant 214 to the GVAO office within 5 days. This is only for benefits, for those receiving benefits. No other agency requires the 214. So my recommendations are the following. Every veteran employed by the government of Guam must complete a registry form. Every director should be tasked to ensure it is done. Every office. And that's easy to do. It'll take them probably a day to do it. Have them sit down, no DD-214 involved, take their names, fill out their registry, give it to them, and let them sort it out. They can find the 214. They can do whatever it takes to put them in the system, and then they can bump it off with what they have in there now. So require every GovGuam employee that is a veteran to complete that form. Also, require every agency providing service, any kind of service, to ask the question in that form, are you a veteran? If the answer is yes, take the individual's name and forward it to GVAO. No need for 214s. Let them sort it out once they get the names. Work with Joint Region. I'm sure that all those folks who are working on base, all the bases right now, when they fill out an application form, they're asked, are you a veteran? And I'm sure that if you go and work with them and tell them what you're trying to do, that they will be perhaps cooperative, and go to their HR systems and pull the names out who have indicated that they are veterans. They have a very good and sophisticated system. HR system identifies veterans in there. And do the same thing. Work with the business community to do the same thing with all the HRs. Pull their names out, send it to GVAO. Now, this may not capture everything, but what you're trying to do is to assist in getting GVAO all that information. It is a tough journey. It's very difficult. Like you mentioned, a lot of the retirees, and I admit I was one of them. I didn't have to register at all, nowhere, because I can get my TRICARE, all the stuff at Naval Hospital. I don't need anybody. I mean, I don't need to go to the VA clinic or any of that stuff. But as I went through, I realized how important it is, and so I'm registered, and I'm also over at CBOC to try and get assistance. When I was coming over here, I stopped by a coffee shop just down the street here, and I saw the lady that is giving me my coffee. I saw her T-shirt that says, "Never ever quit." So, never ever quit, ma'am, in trying to get the registry form online, and you can call on me anytime to help you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. San Agustin?
Vice Speaker, Senator Dennis Rodriguez, good morning, and thank you for having this hearing. My name is Joe San Agustin, the Administrator for the Guam Veterans Affairs Office. I also want to thank the veterans that are in here, and if there's any family members that are here to testify for or against this bill, I appreciate their presence. I want to try to make a quick corrections to Mr. Danny Mendiola, that from now on, I would like for him to either address my title as an administrator and not an acting, because as an acting, if you act, you're just playing a role and not doing anything. However, I want to seriously ensure that the progress that we have started a couple of weeks, months ago, the progress that I have started as an administrator for the Guam Veterans Affairs Office has continued to move forward with great momentum. In speaking about the Veterans Registry Initiative, what has never been done since the placement of the law is now being done. It might be in a crawling stage for several reasons. As I move forward with the implementation, I find out that the project is larger than I anticipate. Vice Speaker, you do understand that I had to involve the Office of Technology because of the magnitude of the document and the project in itself. In keeping with the confidentiality, I try to keep it securely within my office space, not exposing it out any further to any government agency, if you may. But at this point, I do have to place some confidence into the Office of Technology to assist us with the project and to ensure that the information of all our veterans and their family is implemented and securely placed in a database that is secured and that access to individuals not authorized to see any information is prevented. I support this bill in its entirety. Any initiative coming from individuals or leaders to help support move forward initiative that we lack within our own government is welcome to my agency. This one bill is one of them that I welcome. Might it have holes and gaps in between? The fact of the matter is that we have folks that are concerned and are doing something about it. The agencies that I could think of are purview to needing verification of DD-214s. I could say that Revenue and Tax for licensing reasons, the Department of Administration for Veterans Points, and like Mr. Mead has indicated, possibly the Department of Labor and GURA. As we move forward to make this a reality, as you indicated, I have the authority as the administrator for the Guam Veterans Affairs Office to ensure that laws, policies are implemented to ensure the safety, security, and protection of every individual's document. If you ask me the best course of action, I still prefer that this information is obtained from my office for the sole purpose of the security of the sensitive information that's in this document. However, as we move forward, and I will say that this is possibly a pilot program, until a good understanding between myself and those agencies to ensure the protection of the document is in place, then I must bless that we move forward with the policy that is placed in place to ensure that we move forward with the initiative. In saying that, I really applaud the folks, the very few that are here this morning. You know, the saying in the Marine Corps, the few, the proud, this is the few, the proud, and we're going to go out there and take care of the larger community, if you may. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. San Agustin. Vice Speaker, do you have any comments?
Well, I very much want to thank all of you for your testimony and the suggestions to improve the bill, and to acknowledge that I agree the Commission has been working very hard, and the Veterans Affairs Office has been working very hard, and I have utmost faith and confidence that that the administrator's efforts to get the registry going, if he's able to just continue, are really going to accomplish. When we speak, we talk about, I want it done this year, right? We want to finish this year. Let's see what we can do to update ourselves, get it all the way updated so that moving forward, it's relatively easier, right? And I thank you, Mr. Cundiff, for your encouragement to the veterans that even though they don't need services, that registry is very important for the rest of the veterans on Guam, and it's really a continued service to the rest of the veterans. And I know the Commission recognizes this, and you're working on behalf of all of them, whether they're active or they're not in our organizations. But and I'm just trying to do the same, just seeing what we can do to assist him in his efforts at the Veterans Affairs Administration in Guam. And it's a huge task. And at first I thought, well, if we need, I was so perplexed by this disparity, and we went from 24,000 to 300, it was reported in the news. So, yes, so of course, I mean, we are going to all work together. And I want to assure you, Chief Meade, that as in regards to Agent Orange, now I know that's not the topic, but just because you brought it up, and it is a very timely thing because there is a February 9 hearing that the GAO is having 2 more hearings regarding the Agent Orange investigation that they are doing. And they want to talk to veterans who were on Guam or are on Guam. So on February 9, they're having a hearing in the United States, and they have promised an additional hearing on Guam. And I intend to work with the chairperson to do everything that we can possible to accommodate that hearing being, it might be over a long-distance telephone or whatever they decide to do. They haven't sent us the final notice of the hearing to take place on Guam. But I hope that we will assist them. We will open up the legislature if we have to allow veterans to come in and use that long-distance technology or whatever else that they decide, how they decide to set it up. But I just want to assure you, too, that it was in the first month we were in office, January 2017, when the EPA had made notice that they were going to investigate and check whether they could detect Agent Orange on Guam. So I've written them a letter to follow up on what are the results of their investigation. And of course, we did the resolution soon after that. And the resolution was to support a bill in Congress that would recognize that the veterans on Guam were exposed to Agent Orange and to compensate them as part of the Agent Orange compensation that they are allowing for other vicinities. And so when in the course of that resolution hearing, we did ask for additional testimony. We have taken testimony. We're trying to get them to be signed affidavits as well. And we continue to submit these to the senator who has introduced that bill in Congress. And when the GAO came, which was just recently, maybe November or December, very recently the GAO was here because they had been mandated by Congress now to investigate Agent Orange across the United States and its territories. So we are very hopeful that the GAO is going to take seriously all the testimony that we also provided them. Even after the hearing, veterans came to my office to provide testimony regarding their exposure or their concerns about herbicide spraying. And so we collected all that information and with their consent gave it to the GAO as well. And we continue to follow up with GAO. So I know that we had a very active meeting with them, the senators, and there were many senators involved. So I think we are very confident that we will do our best. I am very confident I'm going to do my best, especially in this last hearing by GAO. Because if GAO can do that for us, of course, and there are veterans organizations online on Facebook that are very actively also collecting testimony from people who might know about herbicides or Agent Orange on Guam. So I am very grateful for those efforts. And all of that evidence being put onto the record is going to help all of us. So thank you very much for all those efforts. And thank you again, Mr. Mendola, and everyone for your testimony today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Vice Speaker, and thank you very much to all of you. And again, I'll always take the opportunity when we could to thank our veterans for your service. Sejos Masi. We'll now move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is the executive appointment of Dr. Robert L. Haddock. So we'll just continue. Okay, thank you. Hafide, thank you very much, Mr. Haddock. First of all, I want to congratulate you on your appointment, your reappointment, and I want to thank you for your service that you provide to our community. And so you may go ahead and start your testimony, sir.
Good morning, Senator. Attending this meeting has been very instructive to me. Due to my advancing hearing loss and other disabilities, I feel that I will not be able to contribute effectively to the Allied Health Board meetings, and I therefore wish to respectfully withdraw my nomination to be a member of that board. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Haddock. So we will send that information to the governor's office. I suppose this is the first that you have stated that, and that the governor's office is not aware of your withdrawal of appointment. So we'll ensure that we provide that information to the governor's office.
Okay.
But thank you so much over the years, Dr. Haddock, for your service to our community.
Thank you.
Thank you. We now move on to the next item on the agenda. That is the executive appointment of Dr. Gregory Miller. Dr. Miller? Hafaday, sir. Congratulations again on your reappointment.
Thank you, Senator. So I didn't provide any testimony. This is my third reappointment for this style. We used to just be appointed at large, but actually, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. So.
Well, no, Doc, I know that this Allied Health Board is a very busy board. You have a lot of disciplines that are under this board. And I know one of the challenges you face is the licensing office, the inadequate resources. And one of the items on the agenda on this bill is a bill that we introduced to kind of provide some sort of relief to the health professional licensing office. And so we've worked with some members of the board, your board and other boards, to come up with this piece of legislation. So we look forward to addressing this as well and moving this forward and providing the help that is needed. The only thing I do want to ask you, Doc, is that current law mandates the establishment of the Healing Arts Commission, and that's something that has not been impaneled. And these are the different board chairmen of the different boards under the Health Planning Office. We have on several occasions submitted communication with the governor's office to get them to impanel this commission. We see the value in it is that the different boards come together and really discuss the issues that are faced with the licensing office, and that's something that I would encourage you as the Allied Health Board. I believe you're the chairman.
I'm vice chair.
You're vice chairman. To pursue that, to have the governor's office pursue that, because that's where it needs to come from.
Yeah, actually, the previous title, that was a Commission on Licensure, and it just seemed to die out maybe 10 or 15 years ago, but it was a nice way to have an appeals board, especially if you had a controversial, some type of disciplinary action at one of your board members. You could take it up a level, and then I think it would be nice because then you would have people other than the allied health people from all professions could sit down and listen to the appeal. Mm-hmm. Okay. So yeah, I would be really interested in that, as would I think the chair, Dr. Balahaja. And I'm hoping I'm able to stay long enough to put in my 2 cents for the bill for the funding of the Health Professional Licensures Office. Ironically, I have an allied health meeting in about 45 minutes, but I look forward to serving for you guys.
Great. Thank you very much, Doc. And I don't believe we have any written testimony from the Allied Health Board, and so since you do have a meeting in 45 minutes, I would request that the board address this bill and provide written testimony, whether in support or in opposition, or whatever type of information you can provide so we can move this bill forward.
I'll bring that up.
Thank you very much, Doc. Thank you. We'll keep the record open on your appointment and also the appointment of Dr. The other appointment has been now being withdrawn. So we'll now move on to the executive appointment of Ms. Catherine Sanicolas. We do have several individuals who wish to provide testimony. I'd like to call them up. Or if you do wish to provide testimony, please come forward. Ms. Sanicolas is being appointed as the nutritionist dietary member of the Guam Board of Allied Health. And so we'll go ahead and start from my left. Just state your name, please.
Okay. Hafaday, Senator Rodriguez. Thank you for hearing this testimony. My name is Rose Calvo, registered dietitian of Payless Markets, and I am here in support of the executive appointment of Ms. Catherine St. Nicholas as the nutritionist dietary member of the Guam Board of Allied Health. I will be reading testimony of Dr. Tanisha Aflagui, Assistant Professor and Nutrition Programs Coordinator of the University of Guam, who could not be present today. Ms. St. Nicholas has played a critical role in building capacity in Guam by being the mentor and preceptor for aspiring registered dietitian nutritionists like Dr. Aflagui and myself. As Guam Memorial Hospital Authority's dietary administrator, she was Dr. Aflagui's preceptor in a dietetic internship, where she gained experience in both the food industry and clinical dietetics that advanced her career from a special diet assistant to dietetic technician and ultimately a registered dietitian nutritionist. Working with Ms. St. Nicholas has also influenced Dr. Aflagui's commitment to lifelong learning, as she was able to earn certification as a dietary manager before becoming a dietitian, as well as a food protection professional and ServSafe. Ms. St. Nicholas continues to contribute in guiding registered dietitian nutritionists, being one of the first Chamorro homegrown dietitians, and therefore would be a valuable member of the Guam Board of Allied Health. This concludes Dr. Aflagui's testimony. Thank you for the opportunity to demonstrate our support for Ms. St. Nicholas. Situ Asmasiu.
Thank you very much, Ms. Calvo. Ma'am?
Good morning, Senator. My name is Julieta Vargas. I'm one of the dietitians here in Guam. I work for the U.S. Renal Care as a renal dialysis dietitian. I'm just here to give my support and to seek the approval of the legislature for Ms. St. Nicholas to sit in the board of the allied health profession. That's it.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. We'll go ahead to...
Good morning, Senator Rodriguez. My name is Charlie Morris. I am Administrator for the Bureau of Nutrition Services at the Department of Public Health and Social Services. I'm here to give enthusiastic support of the nomination of Kathy St. Nicholas for the Guam Board of Allied Health Professionals. I would be remiss if I wasn't up here, because Kathy has been my colleague for 29 years, and I know her to have a great, not only in terms of years, but in depth and breadth of experience, to be qualified beyond anyone that I can otherwise think of at this point in time. She, I know, has had levels of high responsibility in the areas of public health, of clinical dietetics, food service management, and once again, I give her my enthusiastic support. We're a small community here, the dietitians in Guam, but encouraged by the fact that we are also a growing community with a lot of up-and-coming young and vibrant nutritionists that are wanting to do a lot of encouraging things. I know that encourages Kathy as well as me, who have been here forever. But I know that and I know that she knows all of these areas, so I'm quite encouraged that with our future in dietetics, and that we now finally have a representative for the board. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Morris. Ma'am?
Good morning, Senator Rodriguez. My name is Marie Garsoniba. I work for the U.S. Renal Care Dialysis as well as Guam Memorial Hospital. I am here to support Kathy St. Nicholas to become a member of the GBAHE. going back 18 years ago, we were hired from the Philippines, and Kathy was our head at that time for Guam Memorial Hospital. And through the years, I've seen her commitment, her enthusiasm to just not support the registered dietitians, but as well as all dietetic professionals, be it the dietetic technicians or the cooks or the chefs who are within the dietary profession, serving for the community and for the community of Guam. So we really, as Guam dietetic professionals, had proposed and supported her placement with the seat of the Guam board to become our voice for the dietetic professionals in Guam. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Great. So, Ms. Nicholas, again, congratulations, and thank you for stepping up and accepting this call.
Thank you, Chairperson. Senator Dennis G. Rodriguez, Jr. Buenas and half a day. I'm known as Kathy, so you may address me as so. And to know more about me, I will share a synopsis of my career and how it would tie into my nomination to the Board of Allied Health Examiners. As a registered dietitian nutritionist, now retired, I had commenced my career in nutrition and clinical dietetics in the mid to late 80s after graduating from the University of Hawaii at Manoa with a Bachelor of Science degree in food science and human nutrition and a Master's in public health degree in nutrition. I returned to Guam immediately to start work at the Department of Public Health and Social Services as a nutritionist for the Guam WIC program in fulfillment of my WHO, the World Health Organization, fellowship requirements. I transferred to Guam Memorial Hospital Authority in 1991 at the asking and convincing of Dr. Olivia Cruz, who was the medical director at that time. She basically threw the guilt trip on me, explaining that it was essential to have me staffed at GMH over public health because of my RD credential would meet the Joint Commission standard for a qualified dietitian for the hospital's dietary department. And she was right. However, the licensure of dietitians and nutritionists had not been established at that time. So during my clinical work at the hospital, I had helped the late Senator Dr. Eduardo Cruz and his office with reviewing the first drafts of the license law for the dietitian and nutritionist profession. Article 21 was added in Public Law 24-329-14 on August 4th, 1998, and the rest is history. Fast forward 16 years, I retired from GMH in 2014 and remain active in my RD licensure. It was back in September of last year that I was initially asked by Dr. Tanisha Franquez Affligui, a UOG nutrition professor whom so happened to be under my mentorship in her pursuit to be a dietitian, to consider serving on the board of Allied Health Examiners. And with the support of all 15 fellow registered dietitians on this island, 5 of which are here present with me, I was nominated by this newly formed RD network. With a blink of an eye from dietitian Charlie Morris, he drafted the nomination letter to the governor, and from which dietitian Juliet Vargas visited each RD employed facility on this island to gather signatures from our fellow dietitians. I was not only touched by the immense support of my colleagues, but felt a sense of purpose to represent the profession and to fill the seat of the dietitian nutritionist that had been vacant for over a decade. So why would I want to serve on the board? The board, I understand, is a strong governing body that must ensure the validity and authenticity of the credentials of all allied health professionals to be given that license to practice in their respective scope of discipline on Guam. This is a huge responsibility. I believe that I have the general understanding of what allied health professionals must meet in maintaining their professional credentials, and I would like to be helpful in having the board meet its mission. So what makes me qualified to serve on the board? Well, as the first dietitian to be licensed on Guam, I do have number DG01 on my card. I am already familiar with the process of attaining and maintaining licensure on Guam, and I can relate to our licensees. What would I do in my capacity as a board member? Specifically speaking on my experience, knowledge, and skills, I would want to help our medical and healthcare clinics, centers, and hospitals bring in legitimate professionals in the field in a timely manner. I understand the timely nature of recruitment of healthcare professionals from off-island and the fear of losing potential prospects due to lengthy license application processes. I hope to learn the process and can help in its careful and timely review of applications. In closing, I have never served on any government board before, and such will be a learning experience for me. I would gladly be the rookie of the group. I thank you for inviting me to speak at my confirmation hearing. Sidzu Usmasi, Kathy.
Great. Thank you very much, Kathy, and to all of you who came and testified. So you're right. You're the first nutritionist member of the Allied Health Board. Is that correct?
Our first nutritionist member on the Allied Health Board was Mary Claire Nadoni.
Okay. So when did she?
She vacated it more than 15 years ago. Was it? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at that time, how many registered dietitians do we have or nutritionists? Are you familiar with?
I know right now we have 15 to 16 currently.
Okay.
And it first started with only a handful. Literally a handful.
Yeah.
Like 5.
So this your profession is very important, especially now as we see what the real issues are with our healthcare system.
Yeah.
Is our community is just is sicker, and so your role plays a very important part in really addressing the root problem of our healthcare challenges. And so I support your profession, the work that you do. One thing I want to ask is that with this Allied Health Board for many years, and Dr. Miller knows that because there's so many professions under one board that it becomes very difficult. And so one of those was the social work board, the social work. When we established licensure for them, that was one of the questions, was that we put them under the Allied Health Board to create their own separate board, right? And so that's what we've worked to do. I don't know if that's something you've talked about in your profession as well, whether in the future, in the near future, hopefully, that's something that would serve your profession better if it's moved over to a separate board.
Okay.
Because right now, as an Allied Health Board, not only do you deal with your profession, you would deal with
their discipline.
chiropractors,
Yeah.
you would deal with vets. How many, Doc?
17.
17 other professions. And so that could be a challenge.
Yeah.
And so I would ask that you can, I know Dr. Miller and Dr. Mamie Balahaja, we've been having these discussions.
Okay.
And so we'll gladly move your nomination, and I support your nomination to the board. But that's something that as a group, I would encourage you to discuss, and that if that's something that you prefer that we address, then please come back and let us know.
Okay. Well,
if
thank you. That's really good to know. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you again, and congratulations on your appointment.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Senator.
We'll now move on to, the other item was the executive appointment of Dr. Kia Ramani. However, he wasn't able to make it, so the committee will continue the appointment hearing on Dr. Ramani. We now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is Bill 197-34. This is relative to establishing the Division of Health Professional Licensing Office within the Department of Public Health and Social Services, authorizing operational funding for the HPLO from the Health Professional Licensing Office Revolving Fund, and providing procurement authorization to the Department of Public Health and Social Services on behalf of the new Division of Health Professional Licensing Office. What this does, ladies and gentlemen, is that it, in statute, establishes the HPLO. This is an office that is tasked with licensing the different boards, such as the Guam Board of Medical Examiner, all the 17 disciplines under the Guam Board of Allied Health Professionals. And so what this does is address the problem that the office has been having in terms of funding and in terms of having clear instructions on what their mandates are. And so we understand that the department and the different boards would be submitting written testimony, so the committee will keep the record open on Bill 197-34. Next item on the agenda is Bill 207-34. This is an act to reorganize and reclassify the eligibility specialist and the eligibility specialist supervisor personnel as welfare program specialists, and provide for the coinciding pay grades within the Division of Public Welfare's Bureau of Economic Security, Department of Public Health and Social Services, and to appropriate the sum of $120,761 for the variance in funding required for affected positions and the filling of vacancies. We have several of those who signed up to testify. I'd like to invite you to come forward if you wish to provide oral testimony. Ms. Annie Gozum Soto. Okay, we'll have the administrator be first, ma'am.
Good morning, Honorable Senator Rodriguez. I'm Annie Gozum Soto, Human Services Program Administrator for the Bureau of Economic Security. I'm here to testify in behalf of my staff, indicating my strong support for the passage of Bill 207-34 corrected to reorganize and reclassify the eligibility specialist and the eligibility specialist supervisor positions within the Division of Public Welfare, Bureau of Economic Security. We are seeking your assistance in addressing in what we believe is inequity and disparity in pay, taking into consideration the duties and responsibilities of the eligibility specialist. We believe this bill is a timely response to our predicament. The eligibility specialists and eligibility specialist supervisors are primarily tasked to determine eligibility for the low-income individuals applying for various public assistance benefits. These benefits are in the form of nutritious food under the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, formerly known as Food Stamp Program, the cash assistance programs to families and or individuals who qualify under the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, aid to the blind, old age assistance, aid to permanently and totally disabled, and the general assistance. They also process and determine eligibility for medical assistance under the Medicaid and the Medically Indigent Program, and also with the Child Care Development Fund program. As mentioned in the bill, every year, the Bureau of Economic Security, through the eligibility specialists and eligibility specialist supervisors, issue on the average of 110 million of SNAP benefits, 107,664 and $410 of medical cost under the Medicaid and Medically Indigent Program to an estimated 50,000 low-income individuals who are under public assistance. The Bureau has also provided cash benefits of $3,832,908 to over 6,000 recipients. Each month, the Bureau is responsible with the processing of over 5,000 applications, which includes, but not limited to, processing of new applications, processing of renewals, the interview process, processing of periodic change reports, and the regular change reports. Finally, the eligibility specialists and the eligibility specialist supervisors have to attend and resolve issues to over 3,000 office visits and to respond to over 500 calls every month. In fact, there were instances that we took cognizance of calls from your office, governor's office, and other non-governmental offices requesting assistance from the Bureau to expedite processing of applicants of our constituents. Aside from the high number of applicants and recipients to be served, the eligibility specialists and the eligibility specialist supervisors have to deal with the complexities in the processing of applications for benefits under the different programs administered by the Bureau, not like in the past where they were only assigned one specific program to administer and determine eligibility. All Guam eligibility specialists are assigned to process eligibility in all public assistance programs applied for in one generic application. In some other states, they only process SNAP or SNAP GA, and they're not processing Medicaid, but on Guam, the eligibility specialists are processing all programs. This means that an eligibility specialist must be knowledgeable and experienced in all public assistance programs, and not only with specific programs. Thus, they have to research, analyze, and consider applicable rules, regulations, policies, and guidelines in determining eligibility of an applicant applying for benefits under various public assistance programs. The complexities in the job task, coupled with the enormous amounts of applicants and recipients to be served, have caused several eligibility specialists to resign and transfer to high-paying Government of Guam jobs. We conducted an exit interview of the eligibility specialist who left the Bureau, and all confirmed that the primary reason why they are quitting is because of the unreasonable pay. It should be noted that prior to Hayes study, the pay grade for an eligibility specialist 1 is letter H, and letter I for eligibility specialist 2. When the Hayes study was implemented, the pay grade for the eligibility specialist 1 was downgraded to letter G, and the eligibility specialist 2 were downgraded to letter H. The eligibility specialist supervisor's pay grade remains at letter K. Ironically, the pay grade of the customer service rep who works with the Bureau's eligibility specialist and whose job is essentially greeting the public, applying for public assistance, receiving, logging, and delivering documents to the eligibility specialist, their pay grade is H, which is higher than the eligibility specialist 1's letter G. Currently, we only have 4 eligibility specialists in the north, 5 eligibilities in central, and 2 eligibilities in the south. We have also compared the eligibility specialist pay grade with other positions in the government of Guam and noted that our eligibility specialists are paid lower than those doing less stressful jobs such as nutritionist assistants 1, employment development worker 1, and tax technician. The works performed by eligibility specialist 1 position are more complex than those performed by other entry-level positions that I mentioned. The disparity of work performed versus the pay created for the eligibility specialists resulted to a number of eligibility specialists leaving the Bureau. In FY15, 6 eligibility specialists left the Bureau, 4 in FY16, 4 in FY17, and so far 1 in FY18. Currently, the Bureau has only 11 eligibility specialists and 4 eligibility specialist supervisors out of 36 budgeted positions. The warm bodies constitute only 41.66% of the 36 budgeted positions. Otherwise stated, there are more vacancies than warm bodies. The eligibility specialists 1 are now assigned with a workload of almost 900 cases, while the eligibility specialists 2s are in the thousands. There is no way that the Bureau can minimize the error rate, let alone eliminate, process all public assistance applications timely, address all incoming calls, resolve benefits inquiry, and respond to all calls. Lack of staff resulted to the Bureau consistently being fined by the Food and Nutrition Service in FY13, FY14, and FY15 due to high error rate. These penalties paid to FNS further exacerbated the already precarious financial condition of the general fund. Thus, the passage of this bill may serve as a vehicle to avoid additional penalties that may ensue due to high error rate. Also, I'd like to mention that although the public assistance benefits such as SNAP is 100% federally funded, the administrative cost is shared 50% by FNS and 50% local funds. The minimal amount of $122,761 requested from the local funds will for sure produce positive impacts in the life of our people, because this bill will attempt to retain our current eligibility specialists and create more hires, process more cases, resulting to timely serving those low-income individuals in their search for food, cash, and medical needs. And I remember there was a bill that was passed recently regarding increasing the eligibility for some of our community, our people in our community under the Medicaid program, or MIP, so it would be really difficult for us to be able to meet that demands without additional staff. Honorable Senator, on behalf of the department, I submit this testimony to you, sir, for your utmost consideration. Together with my staff, I fervently hope and pray to please enact this bill for the sake of our hardworking employees and for the island's needy.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Ms. Annie, for your testimony and your service. Thank you very much. Ma'am?
Good morning, Senator Rodriguez. My name is Rosie Estrada. I am an eligibility specialist too at Northern. And like what Ms. Annie had mentioned, we are in dire need of staffage, and I'm one of the 4 that is placed at the Northern Center versus other places. We do have also another 4 eligibility specialists that is placed at Central, and we only have 2 down in Southern. Now, with the high caseloads that we've been encountering and the influx of applications coming in, Senator, as a worker, it does put us into a lot of stress. Our job is very strenuous, and the demands coming in from phone calls, from incoming visits from the front desk, from clients walking in, the demands from the clients, it's hard. It's really, really hard. We are all working as fast and as hard as we can. You know, it's really hard, Senator. Some of us are looking into other prospects, which myself, as a worker, once on the other side of the table, I know how it feels. I know how it feels when clients come in and they don't get their benefits. And as a worker, I try my best to assure them that I will get them out as soon as possible. And you know, we have to see also on their view, they have children, and if they don't get their benefits when they're supposed to receive them, they hurt. You know, these kids we have calls coming in from parents saying that their children are hungry. What are they going to do? And as a worker, the only thing I can tell them, and currently right now, we are working on a case-by-case basis. We have influx of applications that are not scheduled to be seen until months later. So we're hurting really bad, and we are in dire need of staffage, and what Ms. Annie had mentioned, we need help. And just please help us. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Ma'am?
Good morning, Senator. My name is Norma Rojas. I'm an eligibility specialist supervisor. I just want to reiterate with the 2. When the Hayes study came around, we were too busy with our cases to do justice to ourselves. So we ended up getting a pay cut. And we were blindly trusting our management to take care of us. We either take care of the clients or we take care of ourselves. Usually we end up being second. Our clients usually come first. When there's presentations from insurance companies for either life or medical or AFLAC, the majority of the time we can't go. We can't spare that hour or 2 to go find out what benefits we're entitled to or that they're offering Government of Guam, because we have to take care of our clients. And Ms. Annie mentioned the programs. We may have only 4 programs: CASH, SNAP, Medicaid, and MIP. But CASH has almost all the programs except SNAP have like a McDonald's board where you have different meals. So MIP has 5 or 6, which is with liability, no liability, insulin dependent, dialysis, St. Dominic's. So when they come in and we look at their income, we cannot just say, okay, well, you don't qualify. We still try to find other ways to help them. Even with Medicaid, we try to do Medicaid first. You have old age, with children, without children, elderly and disabled, with or without income. Our CASH cases, you've got the old age, aid to the blind, aid to the permanently and totally disabled, general assistance, And we just can't say, well, you don't qualify for this one and expect them to just leave. These people need help. We're here to help them. So they may not qualify for TANF, so we have to go and check the MIP and which programs under MIP. Sometimes with the household's income, they're not eligible. But then you have to look at if there's a disabled person on insulin, on diabetic, litigo-embolic, and find out if they're eligible for those programs. And that's only one person out of the household. So we don't just take the papers and process. We still have to take a step further and find something else. If they're homeless, we try to find out if they need housing. We refer them to GURA. We refer to jobs program. We refer to Salvation Army, Catholic Social Services. So you have to keep thinking, how else can we help these people? They're already taking off to come in to see us, and then every time they come in, they're taking off from work. Sometimes I think they're just going to get fired before they even get the benefits that, we're trying to give them, because they come in so often to follow up on their benefits. Answering the phone, I've got a client here, I've got a coworker there that needs help, and the phone's ringing. And they say, nobody answers the phone. Well, if I pick up this phone, I say, I just have a small question. And it can take 15, 20 minutes, and you still have a client here waiting to get interviewed, and you've got 20 more outside. And they're yelling at the front desk, so they're coming back to us. It's not easy. Hopefully with the title change, we can get more caseworkers to come in and stay. At one time, we hired 5 people, 5 eligibility workers. They all came in at 8 o'clock. After lunch, 1 came back. I mean, can you imagine 4 hours of looking at what we do and saying, oh, Lord, that's not for me. I can't handle that. So we really need the help. And whoever we do hire, believe me, they have a lot of compassion. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Ms. Annie, I want to thank you for bringing this to our attention, to the committee's attention. And believe me, I understand the work that you folks do. We refer, and you said it right, we refer a lot of people that come to our doors to you. You're really the first line. When they need assistance, they have to go through you to ensure that they're eligible for the different programs that you have. I just have a few questions. First of all, on the Hayes study, was any appeals filed by you or your staff? And was there any determinations made?
As what Ms. Norma said, we were too busy processing cases and handling, our caseload, that we didn't even have time to really, appeal.
To file, okay. And so you also mentioned that that there is a cost sharing for administrative. Does that cover salaries as well?
Under SNAP program,
Under the SNAP. And so how much do we receive under the SNAP program for administrative?
Over $1 million.
Over $1 million. And so that's what's used to fund several positions. But
Yes.
Are they only allowed to do SNAP eligibilities, or do you use them for every other program?
We have generic eligibility specialists, so they process all. We do, what do you call that? I'm blank right now. Cost sharing with other programs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if the government of Guam does increase and has more personnel, is there a cap on how much the federal government is providing in this 50-50 share?
No, there's no cap on the administrative.
So it's whatever we put in is 50% of that as well.
We can always request for additional funding if there's a need.
Okay, great. And the final question I have is something that I've asked numerous times, is that when there is, when you are short in personnel, and this is a very important division in public health, have you requested from management for perhaps temporary personnel from different...
Yes, we did. We in November, we interviewed some people who are interested to become limited term appointees. So I think this week they're getting some calls. So
Okay.
it took a while for us to be able to get those LTA on board.
So what about from other parts of the government, current existing government of Guam workers within the executive branch? Has that ever been explored to see
No, we
if there's...
haven't. We haven't explored that. So, but we were looking on other, from the outside, who may be interested.
Okay, great. Are there anyone else that wish to testify on this bill? If not, we'll continue to keep the record open for a few days for let the public provide any written testimony on this, and we'll ensure that this is moved through the legislative process in the next session that we have.
Thank
Okay?
you, Senator.
Thank you very much. The items of the executive appointment of Dr. Kia Ramani and also the public hearing on Bill 153-34 will be continued by the committee. And so all other items on the agenda have been duly heard. And this committee will now adjourn, and the time is 11:31 a.m. Thank you.